viewers and learners of the Postgraduate Diploma in Environmental and Occupational Health. Today we will discuss on the course MEVE 004, that is Industrial Sector, and the topic of discussion would be tanning industry. I introduce myself as Dr. Sushmitha Baskar, working in the discipline of Environmental Studies at the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University. Now the tanning industry, as you all know, this is one place where the hides, the leather is being manufactured, it is being processed, and they use several types of chemicals. Now in India alone we have several states, like we have West Bengal, then again we have in the place of Kanpur, we have Tamil Nadu also, where there are a number of these tanning industries where the leather is being processed using a number of the chemicals and these salts which impart a color to the leather. So now we will understand in this lecture, after listening to this, you will understand the occupational hazards and the environmental impacts and hazards that are actually being seen due to the environmental pollutants and the contaminants and especially the chemicals that are coming out from these leather industries. And we will also understand some of the treatment processes, and we will discuss the entire session with the help of certain suitable case studies. Now when you see the tanning industry, this is one of the most polluting industries, and let me tell you, it is also a hazardous industry which has been recognized in the Factories Act of 1948. Many people, you would see that they will be suffering from the skin discoloration, the skin ailments, and we can also see several types of occupational cancers with those people who are working in these tanning industries which are totally chemical based. So this is causing significant environmental as well as health impacts. So in these regions you will see that even the groundwater appears colored. You will find that this water which is used for the drinking purposes, where people pump out the water, that may be yellow in color, orange in color, and all these are due to the dyes and all the chemicals that are coming out from these industries which are contaminating the water sources. So we ourselves don't know that we are impacted by these industries and our health is getting affected in the process. Now in the same way, even the crops, the agricultural areas, they may be affected due to this, and in general the environment as such will be polluted, and this the noise also from these industries, that also becomes a very important hazard, an occupational hazard for people who are working in the industry and also for those who are settled right outside these areas. Now the raw material that is used for the leather industry is the bovine hide. So you know that the hide material from the animal that is used in the manufacture in these industries. So leather is used in the manufacture of handbags, bags, purses, belts, jacket, cases, shoes, and also the vehicle seats, and there are much more. You even have the laptop covers and the laptop cases. So leather is used in a wide variety of your domestic equipments and things. You can also use them as the radio covers. The olden days, the radio that we had, even that can also be covered using certain leather cases. So people are fond of leather, we are all fond of leather, but it is a process that is going inside, and what are the chemicals that are being used in the manufacturing process, that is causing a huge cry of concern. Now let us now understand the processes that are involved in this industry. The first is the curing and the soaking. The hides which are used, these are normally salted to prevent decay and decomposition after this is separated from the animal carcass. And let me tell you, you also get the salted hides ready-made available, and then some of them process that also for the further processes. But generally they are salted so that the decomposition process will be prevented, because this is actually from an animal material. The industries also use the salted hides, as I told you before, and that is due to their high rehydration potential. Now once these hides are done, then they are soaked in the water. They are mixed with certain chemical wetting agents and also some disinfectants. This is normally soaked for 8 to 20 hours depending on the thickness of the hides. So you will also see in many of the manufacturing process, in many of the products, the thickness of the hides also, there is a difference from a product to product. Liming. Liming basically conditions the raw hides, and the lime helps to remove the hair, the flesh from the skins, and sodium sulfide is normally used in this process to facilitate this process. Deliming, baiting and pickling. Weak organic acids and digestive enzymes and also the inorganic acids, these are all used to remove the lime, digest and remove the non-structural proteins. So these are also important processes that are used in the tanning industry. Tanning agents. Now here comes the real thing. The chrome tanning agents are actually added to the hides that will prevent the rotting. Retanning and coloring. This is also done to impart special characteristics to the leather. And for this, substances, the chemicals specially such as the aniline dyes, they are added to hot water for coloring the hide. Chrome tanning. So 90% of all the leather products which we are even getting in the market, they are tanned using the chromium salts. Now in this, the basic chromium sulfate salts, this is used and that binds with the collagenous protein material which will help in the leather conversion processing. Vegetable tannins. Now these are basically the plant-based materials, and the natural tannins are available in the plant material itself, and they are available from the tree bark and also from the pods. They basically consist of the hydrolyzable tannins. The mimosa tree and the quebracho tree are some examples where you can get these vegetable coloring agents and tannins. So in some of the products that the leather handbags and the leather jackets that are available now in the markets, you will see that these are basically eco-friendly and they are manufactured using these vegetable tannins, and so it is also safe for the human skin. Now let us discuss about the waste from the industry. So why are we so much concerned about this industry, this industrial sector, and the waste that is coming up from this industrial sector? So the organic and the inorganic constituents are coming from this. Then we have a high oxygen demand and toxic chemical constituents. All this coming from this industry can impact the environment to a very great extent. Then sodium chloride, pesticides that are used, the sulfides, the inorganic residual compounds, dissolved matter, the chromium salts and chlorinated phenols. All these are also important constituents of the industrial waste which is let out. Odor. Mostly in most of the tanneries, they emit a very toxic odor or a very toxic smell, and that can also cause dizziness and headache among the workers and the employees who are working in such industries. Other chemical pollutants, they include the azodyes, antimony, formaldehyde, resins, the heavy metals such as cadmium, copper, arsenic, barium, lead, mercury, nickel, zinc, cobalt, selenium and also certain pesticide residues. Also the PCBs, the polychlorinated biphenyls, are also some chemical pollutants which are observed in the waste material. Tannery sludge. This can basically affect the quality of the soil and the groundwater, because without treatment, when this sludge is coming out, it is let out from the industries into the drainage system. Then you will see that sometimes this can seep into the groundwater, the surface waters can also be polluted, and finally the soil surrounding that area will be entirely contaminated with all these heavy metals, which can cause certain irreversible damage to the environment as well as to the human health. Organic matter. Now there are biodegradable organic matter which is present, and for example the proteins and the carbohydrates are also certain material which are coming from the animal carcass and the hides. Then hydrogen sulfide. So this is a toxic gas and it has an offensive and pungent odor which is resembling the rotten eggs. Many of us would have conducted the science experiments in our 10th and the 12th standard practical experiments, and here when there is a presence of hydrogen sulfide, then that itself indicates a pungent odor resembling that of rotten egg smell. So that means it is a presence of sulfide or hydrogen sulfide gas. So this is released in the liming yard where they are using the sulfides and the anaerobic lagoons of the tannery. So this can be very offensive and pungent. The solid waste also form an important waste material which is coming from this industry. Here this comprises of the animal skin trims, the animal hairs, flesh waste, dust and the keratin waste. When the effluents with the high oxygen demand, these are discharged directly into the surface waters. The oxygen is depleted, affecting the life of many of the plants, bacteria, fish and other living organisms. The non-oxygen dependent and anaerobic organisms also inhabit the waters, leading to the toxicity of these waters. Sulfide gas, again, this alone can cause eye damage, and in higher concentrations it can even lead to death. Sulfates, these come from the acids and the chrome tanning powders and synthetic retanning agents. Chlorides, the sodium chloride is used in the hide and in the skin preservation in the pickling process, and this is highly soluble and stable. So they are unaffected by the effluent treatment, and thus it is causing a lot of the pollution concerns. Natural oils and grease. Here again you will find a lot of the agglomerates which bind to other materials, which is causing severe environmental pollution, especially water pollution. Now these contaminated surface waters, in this figure you can see, that will reduce the oxygen transfer and it creates a very high oxygen demand. Chromium salts. Now the chromium salts, let me tell you, they have an inorganic, it is an inorganic transition metal pollutant which exists in several oxidation states. So for example, the chromium 3 plus and the chromium 6 plus species, that is the chromium trivalent and hexavalent, they are the most common forms which are found in the environment. And these states, they can be interchangeable, or they can actually be oxidized and reduced in the environment depending on the environmental conditions. So the trivalent form can get oxidized to the hexavalent, and the hexavalent form can get reduced to the trivalent chromium form. The chromium 3 plus or the trivalent form, this is a more stable form of chromium and its compounds are often insoluble in water. The hexavalent chromium, this is the second most stable form and it is the most toxic of the chromium, and many of its compounds are soluble. The chromium hexavalent form of the chromium has the ability to easily enter into the cells of organisms where it exerts toxicity by its reduction to chromium 5, 4 and also 3. Let us take one case study, which is a lot of the tanneries which are associated and situated in Kanpur. So chromium in Kanpur and the related health impacts. So Kanpur is one place in India and they host a lot of tanneries and industries which are manufacturing the basic chrome sulfate, which is a basic chemical that is used in the tanning agent in the tanneries. So there are 400 odd more tanneries which are situated in Kanpur, and they discharge more than 1500 metric tons of the chromium sulfate as the waste. So if ever you have taken a train ride or a bus ride in this region alone, you will see the amount of the colored toxic material which is coming out of these small industries. The wastes are dumped on the open lands and the water bodies, and you will see them actually flowing on the roadside even in some cases. Now the Central Pollution Control Board, the CPCB, they have reported high chromium, that is a hexavalent chromium concentration, up to 250 times higher than the World Health Organization permissible limits. That is, it's more than 0.05 ppm in some areas at Kanpur. Most of the residents, they have complained of the skin disorders, eye disorders, gastrointestinal infections and various other cancers and disorders. Now in this picture you can see how yellow colored the water is coming out from the hand pump which people use for washing their daily vessels, for taking bath, for even drinking purposes sometimes. So this can really cause irreversible and toxic effects on the human health. The occupational hazards of working in such industries, the hazards from the chemicals. So chromium leather dust is very important, and as I told you, the hexavalent chromium form is quickly absorbed by the lungs into the blood, and it can easily penetrate the blood cells, and then it can bind to hemoglobin in the red blood cells. This can cause dermatitis, ulcers, respiratory diseases of the lung, the nasal cancers and so on. So there is high level of chromium in the blood and the urine of such employees. The hydrogen sulfide gas can cause watering of the eyes, sneezing, sore throat, headache, giddiness and again loss of energy. The hazards from the dust from the leather industry. Shaving and buffing processes, they generate a large amount of dust, and the lime dust alone, this can cause corneal ulceration, that is in the eyes, opacity of the eyes and irritation to the respiratory tracts. Hazards from the machinery. This is from the revolving drums, the in-running rollers, knives. They can all cause bruises, scrapes, abrasions and sometimes amputations. The high noise can also cause partial hearing impairment to the workers. Electric shocks and accidents can also occur in the industries. The physical hazards mainly involve the greasy and the wet floors, and also they can cause fatal injuries. Occupational cancers. The exposures within the leather tanning industry, they have resulted in specific cancers including the lung cancer, bladder, kidney cancers, pancreatic and oral cavity cancers, nasal and soft tissue sarcomas of the skin, along with the dermatitis, ulcers, perforation of the nasal septum and respiratory illnesses. Let us take one more example, a case study of the leather industry which is situated at Ambur in Tamil Nadu. The tannery industries near Thutipet Road and Devalapuram Road in Ambur. So here again there is a lot of the chemicals which are being generated in these industries, and there is a strong odor and dizziness among the workers. The workers have also complained about severe joint pain, eye irritation, there is a lot of skin rash and the discoloration. Now 70% of the workers who are working in this industry alone, they say that their health is poor to even in very bad condition. The Palar river also, this is contaminated with a number of the tannery waste. Biological hazards from these industries. So the workers are working 24/7 around the clock, and they also take shifts in between and rest. But these workers are involved in several processes like the curing, the soaking processes. Sometimes even without gloves, they are using, exposing their hands to these chemical processes. Anthrax again, that can be hazardous, and that can enter through the skin or even through certain cuts and also by inhalation. So anthrax, this can cause a biological hazard, and the dry salted hides, these are more likely to cause the anthrax than the wet salted ones. So finally, how can we manage these waste? There is a preliminary, secondary and the tertiary treatment techniques which are being employed in several of the industries. Pre-treatment, this will involve removing the larger particles, sand, grease and the suspended solids. It will also reduce the biological oxygen demand, the chemical oxygen demand, the chrome and the sulfides before these effluents are being discharged and reused. The primary processing. So here again we have the screening, the equalization, the sulfide oxidation methods, chemical treatment, the settling and the sludge dewatering techniques. 25 to 50% of the biological oxygen demand will be taken out in this process, and 50 to 70% of the suspended solids and 65% of the grease will be removed only in this primary process itself. Secondary processes. Now this is the process where the organic matter is removed using aerobic biological treatment methods. The activated sludge treatment with extended aeration, and here again the microorganisms are used in order to remove these substances causing oxygen demand. So here in this figure you can see how this organic matter is removed using the biological treatment methods. The aeration basins and the oxidation ditch, these are also very effective processes and best for the tannery effluents. Tertiary processes. Reducing the residual chemical oxygen demand load, that is one thing which is taken into account in this process, and sometimes the recalcitrant chemical oxygen demand can remain. Mineralization of the organic compounds by oxidation with the hydrogen peroxide in the presence of ferrous sulfate, that is a Fenton processes, can be done. The ozonation is also done, which is used to remove the residual COD. Sludge handling and disposal. So finally, after all these processes, the mechanical sludge dewatering is done at the landfills, in composting and anaerobic digestion, and thermal treatments can also be done. Finally, the sludge that is coming out, this can also be used in brick making. So in several of the places you will see that this tannery effluent sludge, after the final process, this sludge can be used in order to make the bricks, and then the bricks can be used for making the road, for laying out the roads, or for the footpath, or even as using as ornamental bricks for the flowers and also for the horticultural purposes, or even as a park boundaries. So these are all some innovative ways where even the sludge can also be handled and disposed and then used as a creative method and way for other environmental ornamental purposes. So my dear learners, in this session we have understood about the tannery effluents and the tannery industry and the waste that are given out from these industrial sectors, the occupational hazards which are faced by the industrial workers, by the employees who are employed in such sectors, The environmental impacts we have seen with two case studies, one in Kanpur and one in Ambur in Tamil Nadu, how the people are facing irreversible health impacts. So these are some of the very important aspects that we need to understand about the processes and the chemicals that are being used in such industries, and how even vegetable tannins and the eco-friendly sources like vegetable sources can also be used for coloring the leather products. And again, we have also understood some of the treatment processes, those which are best suited for the tannery industry, and how we can minimize the waste which is generated to the environment. I thank you for your patient listening.